Warning, this content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. Serious, alien abductees are those who claim to have seen a UFO/alien phenomena. What is your story? Never thought I'd be someone to have a missing time story, but it happened. December 29, 2001, we left my house at 6 p.m. We rode our bikes to the woods down THD block and hung out there for a bit. My friend was crushing the ice lake with a fence pole we found, and suddenly I heard footsteps behind me. We checked the time, it was 8:15. We then saw the most amazing shooting star horizon to horizon above us. We even heard it. We hid in the woods and saw a star slowly move across the sky. Normally I would say it's a satellite, but it moved a few inches in the sky and then stopped. The woods are just a few blocks away. Mine happened in the early 2000s. I was around 16. Me, my brother, my friend and friend's father were catfishing on Lake Okeechobee in FL. The father had a large pontoon houseboat, so we stayed out there all night. Anyways, the father had went to bed, and at about 2 a.m. I decided I was going to bed. I laid down for about 5 minutes when my brother and friend came into the cabin and told me to wake up. I wasn't asleep yet, so I just got up. There was this orangish/blue ball kind of floating but moving side to side a bit. We just stared at it for a few minutes. As we kept watching, it would change color. It changed from orange to bluish to greenish and back. There was no pattern. It also moved different directions. We weren't drinking or doing drugs, but we all saw it. Kind of freaked us out, but it was pretty cool. I have no idea what it was, but it was very strange. It wasn't a helicopter or plane, I do know that. Weird lights in the sky. Took this last September from the side of the road. When the video stops is when the blinking one took off and the other one hit reverse. I had to shut it off because a cop pulled up behind me. This is the craziest UFO phenomena true story, and it came from my dad. 1960s in Ethiopia. My dad is just a child, 9 years old, at the time, playing with his best friend Gabriel after school. They were playing in the fenced backyard of my dad's house. It's important to note that my dad and Gabriel were from the top 1% of Ethiopia's ruling elite. My dad's father was Minister of Interior of Ethiopia and Gabriel's father was a 4-star general of Ethiopia. A couple of hours pass. His parents, my dad's parents and guards are searching, but no Gabriel. Helicopters even search the countryside looking for him, still nothing. A month passes, then 2, then 4, people start losing hope that he would ever be found and think the worst. Exactly 6 months to the day he disappeared, Gabriel appears back in my dad's backyard. He was wearing the same white shirt private school uniform and it was still clean. He looked exactly the same as when he disappeared. The white glowing room had no windows and the doors disappeared into the walls. There were buttons on the walls, and if a kid pushed them, a bed would come out of the wall. He said he was then all of a sudden in a city that was glowing, clean, and cars were flying around him. One nice man was still with him and took him to a tall building, where he said he had to stay there for a while, but showed him a room that he could use for entertainment. Gabriel said he could push a button and the room itself goes places, an open field, the beach. The room itself even flies. No one believed him, and Ethiopia being a super religious country, most adults around him thought he got possessed by the devil. Gabriel even was forced to see a priest to get the evil spirits out of him. Let me preface this by stating that almost all of the encounters that I have witnessed have been with at least one other individual. The first 2 encounters happened on 2 consecutive days in 1997, and the numerous other encounters happened over the span of 90 days a year and a half ago. I have filed reports with the incredibly incompetent MUFON. Back in 97, my buddy and I had just finished up our shift at a pizza joint. It was after 11 p.m. We were wore out and wanted to get stoned. We were completely sober. Anyway, we drove out into a cornfield in the off year, so it was full of rye. We were way out in the country, so no worries. My buddy starts breaking up the weed when I notice what I believe to be truck headlights shine directly from behind, take a hard left, and disappear. My buddy didn't seem to notice, but I became frantic. I thought it was the cops. I recall looking at the stars, and one star in particular grabbed my attention. I can't tell you why, but it looked like your average star. Within 30 seconds this star starts moving up and down, side to side, and in circles. For 5 minutes the UFO continues to move in very fluid movements, making impossible maneuvers, and do so in complete silence. Without notice, this one object becomes 5 equally impressive star-like objects. They stayed close together, just as quick as the 5 came, They fused back together as one. We were in shock, but we didn't feel like we were in harm's way. We were recapping what we witnessed, but that single UFO was still there. It wasn't moving too much. We thought things were coming to a close, but we were wrong. The way they moved and jerked around felt aggressive to me. My friend must have felt the same way, because he said he was starting to get nervous. I told him we should go. I embarrassingly confessed that I knew it was there for us, and I became fearful. The stories actually get far more interesting and do include ETs and different types of UFOs. I'll keep going if anyone is interested. I saw a UFO up close. Probably from 30 feet away tops. I'm pretty certain that it was of military design, though. I was out driving with my younger brother near a military base in Tucson, Arizona, probably not even 2 miles from my house. It was about 10 p.m. or so and there were no cars on the road. I was making a left at an intersection and right as I completed my turn I heard it, literally the sound that they play as an effect for hovercraft in movies. That was what I was hearing. It started out quiet but got louder as the craft got closer. What I saw shocked me and has had me convinced ever since. As I came to a stop, the craft glided above us and I watched the wings detach like a transformer robot and lower themselves from the craft by about 5 to 10 feet. The wings at this point were supported only by 2 rods connected to the craft. To further describe the craft, it had 2 modes as far as we could tell. One where the craft is consolidated into a triangular shape and seems to be designed for quick horizontal travel, while the other mode allowed for VTOL movements, and of course with thrusters facing it like a 45-degree angle, but they were adjustable. The whole thing was pitch black and we would have never noticed it if we hadn't had the radio off and heard it approaching from behind. I could come back later with a drawing of it if you guys are interested. I'm not sure if this counts as alien or not, but I definitely saw something I can explain it all about 5 years ago and have been dying to tell the story in a thread. It was almost night, the sun was still kind of out and it wasn't that dark yet and we were driving on a 2-lane highway that had trees on either side of the road and a median in the middle of the lanes. We almost hit the thing and our friend's mom had to slam on the brakes and everyone as the car was screaming our heads off. Not because it was a look out for that deer situation but because this was the scariest F-king looking thing I've ever seen. This thing moves so F-king weird I can see it clearly to this day. It galloped so awkwardly, did not run at all like a deer or anything of the sort. When it jumped off of the back 2 legs and landed again on the back 2 legs before coming down and galloping across the road, which was what the fuck was that thing? To this day I am convinced it was a demon or an alien or an escaped medical experiment. It was large, and terrifying and the way it moved was unlike anything I have ever seen in my life. I have seen and although it's dismissed by most people I will share once more. It was 4th of July 2 years ago. I was in Seattle getting ready to watch the fireworks display over Lake Washington Union. About 20 minutes before it begins I saw 3 orange-yellow lights flying in a perfect equilateral triangle formation. Mine happened probably back in about 95 to 96-ish. At the time, I was a pizza delivery guy. I was out on a delivery, and after the delivery, I was returning to the store. While driving along the highway, I noticed 3 still lights, almost in a row, way off above the horizon. It was evening, dark. Stars were visible. First thought was that they were from planes for the airport, as they were way brighter than the stars that were out. They only looked still cause I was driving on the highway, and my mind was playing tricks on me. Etc. etc. Over the course of the next few minutes, as I was continuing down the highway, I noticed the center light started moving up. It continued into the shape of a triangle. I continued to try to keep an eye on triangle of lights in the distance as the whole thing started moving up in the sky. I eventually lost eyesight of this thing behind trees / whatever else and made it back to work. Was utterly confused by the whole thing, didn't tell anyone cause I figured they'd think I was crazy. I kind of even thought myself I was seeing things and making SHD up. Dunno why I remember this part. This all happened about a week before Super Bowl. Might have even been the Friday before Super Bowl. Unsure. All I remember is that before the Super Bowl, I was watching Sci-Fi Channel. Some show was on about people who had seen UFOs, whatever. I was always skeptical at best, and they started showing clips of the few examples that people had caught on video. It was exactly what I had seen. Never saw anything since. No one else reported any strange sights that weekend that I knew of. Course I was a dumb early 20s kid, so I didn't pay attention to local news, but I'll never forget that incident. This event occurred in 2011 and has haunted me every day since. I work in networking and all of hours are late. I usually get off around 2 a.m. and then I am up for a few hours before I go to bed. This evening I got off work and it was raining really bad on my way home. One of my buddies called me and we were chatting about work. It was still not raining and there were low-lying clouds. There are orange street lights in Allen and they were reflecting off the bottom of the clouds creating an artificial light. There was a pretty good breeze whipping around, but no rain. It was moving with a corner forward. This thing was huge. I was astonished to the core of my soul. I sat speechless for a few seconds knowing that I was seeing something amazing. It was 80 to 100 feet tall. It was a black cube in shape and looked like a rough stone surface. It looked like if you were to draw a circular maze. It was disturbing the air behind it and created a vaporous trail spinning behind it and then disappearing. There was absolutely no sound. None. If you know Dallas, it was traveling in the direction of southbound 75 Central Expressway towards downtown. I fumbled over my words telling him and asked him to go outside to see if he could see it. He went out to the middle of his street and looked in the direction that it was coming from. After about 5 minutes it started to rain again. He stood out in the rain for another 15 minutes but never saw it. Anyways, no one can ever tell me that I didn't see what I saw that night. I have been ridiculed and laughed at, but I know what I saw. It is almost a relief at this point to know that they are really here. I have been a long-time lurker and I had to get this off of my chest. I cannot stop thinking about it. I have to see it again. Thanks for listening. Edit, Allen, Texas, near Dallas. Edit, sorry for the potato quality drawing. I could always take more time and sketch something more detailed, but this is the gist of it. It was below the clouds. It looked like the entire cube was carved from a single stone. It had a border along its edges and a circular pattern in the middle. Think of a view of a circular maze from above. Also of interesting note, no lights from the craft either. This may have just been a very vivid childhood dream, but whenever I think about it, it never feels like it. It has to be, though. Anyway, my mom was a single mom who worked an overnight shift when I was young. Despite this being totally illegal, she used to let me stay home by myself overnight in our apartment. One night, I remember seeing this being in my bedroom. I cowered under my comforter as I watched the being draw glowing lines along the wall near my door. I asked the being what it meant and in my head it told me that I would eventually understand someday. This was before I'd ever seen any movie/TV shows with aliens in it. You know, the gray ones with the big eyes. I don't think this one was gray though. I kind of remember it being like a sickly greenish white, but it did have big eyes. Suddenly the large fireball streaked across the sky, passing over us, and disappearing about halfway to the horizon. Still no idea what we saw. I have never told anyone about this, but since you guys are sharing, I was about 6 years old and my father and I were separated from each other as we were roaming around the Page Museum in Los Angeles. I entered a back room where 3 blonde-haired people were all sitting at a table facing me. They were really tall and wore very fitted clothes. I thought about it and I decided to stay on Earth. I then left the room to look for my father. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I chose leaving Earth. Last Halloween me and my friends were on a dock about to light off some fireworks. We had all just arrived and were still just shooting the SHT to see if anyone else would show up. It wasn't very high in the sky, maybe 1,000 to 2,000 feet in the air. I will never forget the color of that magnetic rainbow force field looking thing. I was driving east down a highway in central PA, it was 1996-97. It was around 11:30, so not much traffic. I noticed something off to my left in the sky. There were 5 orange balls of light flying in a sort of diamond formation at maybe 5,000 feet. This is my best guess. It looked so weird I pulled over. Suddenly they broke formation and started to zigzag all over the sky. After about 10 seconds of this they shot straight up in the sky and were gone in an instant. Dumbfounded, I looked around for a minute and saw a guy standing across the road next to his car looking up at the sky, probably thinking the same as you. I said, "Well, that was cool," he said, and got into his car and left. Not sure what it was, but I know I wasn't the only one who saw it that night. This happened a while ago. I was probably around 14 when I saw it. In the sky was this massive circular disc, probably about 75 feet in circumference and about 150 feet in the air right above our backyard, with circular lights all around it. It's your typical UFO that you'd think of. When we got into the front it was gone. Nowhere in the distance or anything. My whole family saw it and we have no idea what it was. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.